welcome. Would you like to introduce your name, course, and your year?
Yeah, so my name's Sagar. I'm currently studying Aerospace Engineering at the University of Sheffield. I'm in my fourth year of a four-year master's degree.
Could you tell us your hometown?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Stoke-on-Trent, so somewhere in the Midlands, pretty much.
Could you remind us of the course you're currently studying?
So I'm studying Aerospace Engineering, and I'm in my fourth year.
Why did you choose your course?
So I chose my course because I had an interest in space, rocketry, and things like that. And aerospace seemed to be the natural choice to go into that sort of industry.
So you've now 4 years into your course.
Mm-hmm.
What have you thought of your course?
I think it's an interesting course, but I feel as though the course content is not the most important part, I'd say, of uni in general. And yeah, I guess I can elaborate on that further on.
So why don't you think
Yeah,
it's the most
so
important?
I think the thing with the course is the way it's structured, especially, is like with exams and so on. You always learn for the exam, you don't learn for the content. And I feel as though that's not an ideal way to truly understand topics. I mean, even though I'm in my fourth year, I understand a decent amount of aerospace, but I feel as though a lot of the fine details that they expect you to know for the exams and so on, they don't really get passed along through each year. So you almost forget what you learned the previous year and sort of have to recap basic concepts and so on.
So they kind of rebuild on that from first year, second year, third year, and you kind of expect it just to learn it.
Yeah, in essence.
So you took 4 years, implying you had a third year placement?
No, my four-year course is an integrated master's course. So I finished with an MEng in aerospace.
So could you tell us what an integrated master's course is and how it
Yeah.
applies to your course?
Okay, so an integrated master's course takes you from sixth form. So you finish sixth form, you're going into uni, and then you do 4 years at university, and then you come out with a master's in engineering. So mine is an integrated master's in engineering. So you skip out the whole bachelor's section. So I don't get awarded a bachelor's degree. I go straight and end up with a master's degree.
Okay. Could you remind us of the university you're currently studying at?
Yep, I'm studying at the University of Sheffield.
What are the best and worst things about studying at the University of Sheffield? Starting off with the worst.
So I think the worst thing I'd say is that the city is quite small. So it's less of an issue that with the uni, it's more so the location. And I feel as though you don't get as many connections in terms of industry connections when you're at Sheffield, because the city is so small. The only reason I know this is because I studied in Australia at the University of New South Wales in my third year, and I noticed the difference between industry connections I made over there in Sydney compared to Sheffield. And there was a drastic difference. And I think that's primarily because of the city that I was in.
Okay, so is there anything else bad about it, or was it pretty much just the area?
I think overall the university is pretty good. I couldn't really find any major faults to it or anything. So and in general for a uni, it's pretty good. Yeah.
So now what are the best things about studying at your university?
Yeah, I think the good things with Sheffield is they have a lot of extracurricular projects. So I was involved in quite a few of the space engineering projects in my university. And during my first and second year, I was out in the US for about like 8 weeks or so. And it was great because you get to explore like the world for free, because the costs of flight tickets and so on was all paid for by the uni. And the like experiences you get are quite useful, because when you go into, say, for example, find internships or grad placements, you have a lot of experience working in close-knit high pressure teams, because you're juggling uni work as well as a large project which involves multiple engineers and so on. So it really builds your time management, organization, and interpersonal skills through that.
Okay. Sorry, if we now go into the accommodation of where you lived for each year, where did you live in your first year?
So in first year, I stayed in student halls. So it was like a shared flat where I had an ensuite bathroom.
Do you have the name, or was it just student halls?
Yeah, so it was called Allen Court. So
What was
that's
it
actually
like?
owned by Sheffield.
And what was it like living there? And like lifestyle, the people, the just being a student in that accommodation?
Yeah, I think it was fine. I'd say I probably lucked out with my flatmates because they all were pretty chill. Because I've heard like other stories about other people's flatmates and they're not so good. So I think I was fairly lucky with who I was with. Actually, so much so that subsequently in my second year, I lived with two of the people who I met in my flat in first year. So I guess it was good.
And where did you live in your second year?
Yeah, so in second year, I lived in a similar sort of setup in a building called IQ Brocco. And again, that was pretty much the same environment. So yeah, not much too different to first year.
If we were going to compare the kind of vibe, so the what is like, the from party to study,
Mm-hmm.
what was it like living in the first accommodation?
I think there's probably more party-ish atmosphere, but primarily because it was full of first years and first years. I guess they're more likely to party than later on because when you realize the work is actually heavy, you decide to go out less and actually focus on your studies and so on. So I think it's probably more so because of the years that were like living in my first accommodation that made it more party-esque. But that's I mean what I couldn't say about that.
And the second accommodation?
Yeah, I mean that one, like I'd say the vibe was pretty much identical. I mean the types of students were same in both. I think the main reason why the first one seemed more like I guess party like was just purely because of the flatmates I was living with and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you said in your third year you studied in Australia.
Yeah.
And then now in your final year, where are you living?
Yeah, so same again, living in a ensuite shared flat and in a building called Central Place, formerly called Sheffield 2. And yeah, I mean, this year it's kind of strange because there's supposed to be 5 people living here, but there's only 2 others plus me. So the other 2 guys who are coming from Hong Kong couldn't make it because of
Obviously.
COVID. So yeah, definitely much quieter in terms of the student accommodation this year.
Okay. If we're now going, you previously talked about the Sheffield area. Is there anything else you think students need to know, such as what is the nightlife like?
Yeah, I'd say that there's quite a range of clubs and stuff you can go to. I personally am not too big into clubbing. I find it much more relaxing and stuff to go to just a pub and stuff because you can talk to friends and so on like that much easily. And that's what I can really describe about the nightlife. Yeah.
What are the shops like? For getting your essentials,
Yeah.
is there a lot of them, a little bit of them, a traditional, non-traditional? What are they like?
There's a range of like normal supermarkets. So Tesco is quite common around in the city area of Sheffield. There's quite a number of them. I actually live above a Tesco Express, so it's pretty handy to just go downstairs and buy stuff if I want to. So yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there's all convenient. Yeah.
And lastly, is there anything else you think students need to know? Just if students who are curious about studying at Sheffield, some surprises that you may have encountered when you started university.
Yeah. I think probably just the fact that you need to get involved in stuff to really find out what other stuff is available at Sheffield. Because the main reason I figured out that all these space engineering projects exist is because I was looking for other stuff to do. So I think the main thing is like you have to be curious yourself to figure out what's there to then start to like, peel off that like paint to figure out where stuff is and what you can do really.
Okay. What general advice would you give to students about the study at university?
Yeah, okay. So I think I'd say make friends with a lot of people. Trying to figure out who you get along with and so on is important. And it's definitely useful to build connections, genuine connections with people that could help you progress in your future careers because whilst you're at university, you're pretty much all on an equal playing field. So it can help you in the long run if you become friends with a lot of people at uni that you can then talk to in your future careers.
What advice would you give to students about to study at Sheffield University?
So at Sheffield, I think there's nothing specific I could really say, apart from, I guess, just have a great time if you're choosing to study in Sheffield because there's a lot of things to do. So if, for example, you're not a huge party goer like myself, there's plenty of other stuff to do because there's the Peak District right next door, which is amazing for people if you want to go hiking, mountain biking, or whatever. And that's kind of stuff that I enjoy doing. And there's a lot of people in Sheffield like that enjoy the outdoors sort of activities. So, it's not just restricted to going to clubs and so on. So yeah, if you are a non-clubbing person, then it's still great to come to Sheffield because there's so much other stuff you can do.
And finally, what advice do you give to students about to study your course at university?
Yeah, I think what I would say is be prepared that it will be difficult, but as long as you put in the hours that are recommended, you'll be doing fine. And the other thing is just be aware, because if you've chosen to do aerospace, you might think it's all to do with planes and rockets. It's not. It's got so much other stuff added to it. So you're gonna obviously learn about things that are not related directly to what you're interested in, but you just have to stick it up and go through it.
Could you give us an example of one of these things that you may?
Yeah. So recently I had some piece of coursework which was to do with designing a bridge over a canal. And as you can imagine, that's nothing to do with aerospace, but I mean, it all links together because it was related to composite materials. So I think the main thing is they use examples that are not aerospace, but the fundamentals apply to the same industry.
You chose to go to university over an apprenticeship / going right into work. What path you to make this choice?
I think it was honestly it'd just be because that seemed to be what most people were doing. And I think when I chose to study at uni, apprenticeships were sort of looked at in a negative way. They were like, if you're not good enough to go to uni, you go to do an apprenticeship sort of thing. And I'd say that's why I swayed away from apprenticeships. Also, the fact that when I did look at apprenticeships, but it just didn't appeal to me at the time because the quality that was on offer were not great. I know that I've had a look recently and they seem to be much better than they were when I applied to go to uni. So if I was to go to uni now, maybe I would consider an apprenticeship. So yeah.
So could you tell us more about your YouTube channel, what it is, the name, your plans, why you started? Just give us a rundown and what kind of videos people can expect, students can expect.
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is called SA64R, which is basically my name, but written in Leet speak, if you will. And the videos that I post are about like university, tech, aerospace. So basically things that I'm interested in that I think other people would find interesting and could learn from. The main reason I started the YouTube channel was primarily just to educate and try and help other students that are in uni and even people who are outside of uni either learn about aerospace or understand, I guess, the world in general and learn from my experiences, because I think I've had a lot of experiences getting involved with things in university, also going studying abroad and stuff like that. So I thought I can, provide like a unique, insight into engineering, tech, and uni.
Where do you plan to take the channel?
I think I want to grow it to help a lot of people. I still haven't given it much thought as to which direction I want to take it. Definitely, I want to make it successful. And ultimately try and get a wider reach so I can just help as many people as I can understand more about uni, engineering, and I guess whatever comes up in my life in the future. So in my grad role, maybe I can produce content on what I do there, and just, I guess, grow it as I grow, really. And hopefully people in sort of my demographic would enjoy it because it'll just grow with them, I guess.
At this point, I let students have what I like to call a free for all. You can say what you want about what you like. You can give advice. You can say something smart. You can say something dumb. Literally, the floor is yours.
Okay. I think what I would say is like, so if you're going to university, try and think about like why you're going. It's really important to know why you want to go to university and what your aims are in the future. Honestly, it's much easier to know what you want to it's easier if you know what you want to do in the future, like earlier on, because you're able to make the right decisions by having a look at where other people are in the same position. So for example, my ultimate goal would be to be an astronaut. Like that's what I really, aspire towards. And it's also one of the reasons why I chose aerospace, why I get involved with technical projects and so on. And also, have a healthy lifestyle, because all of those things attribute towards, making an astronaut. And I think it's important to also figure out like who you're sort of aspiring to be, because I think that's the best way to really understand, how you can best set yourself up. So for example, if your career ambition is to be an F1, have a look on LinkedIn, see what these F1 engineers have done before they actually went there, and then work your way backwards and tick all the boxes. And you're sort of casting the votes in your favor that you would be chosen to work for an F1 team. And that's the best advice I can give to anyone starting uni.
Who are you inspiring to be?
I mean, I would say I'm inspiring. Well, there's multiple people. Like I would say any astronaut is a role model of mine, because they've gone and done what I, am currently just dreaming of doing. And I think the other side, I'd say Elon Musk is another inspiration, purely because he's able to not only be intelligent enough to engineer some awesome things, but he's also a really astute business person that can, bring these things into fruition. So instead of like an academic who does research, who just like says, hey, look, this is what we can do. Elon Musk is taking and applying that knowledge and, intelligence to make things into reality and make them economically viable, which I think is a whole different league of what lecturers and so on do.
Hey,
don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'm plugged in.
Amazing. Thank you.